be as simple as, eating better, working out. Some kids can engage in, I know here in Cleveland, they'll still have gymnastics. So they'll get their social needs met. They'll get that safety and security of that structure met. So when we can, intentionally engage in some kind of routine or some kind of pattern, we're taking a break from that crisis mode so that when it has to kick back in, it's not like it's been constant, but we were able to kind of refuel and then handle these elements of surprise and these shifts in a more productive, less exhausting way.
So you used a great term, which is called self-care. And this would be a great segue for Naomi to help us. What are some self-care things that kids can do so that they can kind of exactly what she said, which then when we're in crisis or they have to switch, they can make use of that knowledge?
So I'm going to actually answer your question a little differently than expected. I'm actually going to say and focus on the self-care of the parent in this situation. Right. Because the old analogy, we can't put on our child's oxygen mask sitting on the plane until we put on our own. So professionally, being a working mom with 4 young kids at home, I'm going to bring my expertise as a mom here during this pandemic. And what has really helped myself and many other moms I speak with really get through it is taking care of ourselves. And sometimes moms and parents are not always the best at that. We do always put our children first. And I think although that's lovely, we can't really help them through their crisis mode if we are in crisis mode ourselves. So I think it's really, really important to address that piece. And I'm happy to talk about the kids too, but that's what I wanted to bring to the table today. We have a lot of amazing professionals here on the panel tonight. I think from my perspective as a mom, that is so crucial. And I see it over and over with my caseload, with community members, with friends. There is this piece missing where we forget to take care of ourselves. Everything that Hannah Peril just mentioned, gymnastics for kids. Where's the exercise for busy moms and dads? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you going for a walk? Are you getting together in a safe way, in a socially distanced way? Are you having human interaction? Or are you constantly taking care of your children and moving from crisis mode to crisis mode? So
I appreciate that, because so much of the anxiety that I was talking about in the beginning gets transferred. Yep. If we're very anxious, then they're very anxious. Kelly, you want to talk from a teacher's perspective? Self-care for teachers?
You mean for the teachers themselves? Yes, I can do that. Naomi makes a good point that parents need to take care of themselves. And of course, the teachers need to do what they need to do to take care of themselves as well. I wanted to hit on too, though, as an extension of kind of what Naomi was talking about. So for students themselves, when they're in this online situation, one of the things that I found as I'm teaching, because I teach as well at this time, is that sometimes they're just not prepared. So some of my students come and they have everything that they need right in front of them, and some don't. And so in that moment, they're in their own little mini crisis. Oh my gosh, I don't have a piece of paper. Where can I get a piece of paper? So if the parents can help work with the teachers and say, what exactly are they going to need every day? Have that at a station where they have the paper that they need and the pencils that they need and the whiteboard that they need, everything right in front of them. And also to have a schedule for them listed so that the student doesn't wonder what's going on. They know exactly what's going to happen. That will help them stay out of crisis mode, which will then, help the teacher because.
Right. It's really all a circle when it comes to education. But I want to address also some of the guilt or some of the frustrations that moms are like, okay, we're in this for a long time, Dr. Shapiro. We weren't meant to be a teacher. We weren't meant to be doing homeschooling for the rest of our lives. We just keep thinking, oh, one more week, and they have a lot of struggle because for the first time, they're not only just the parent, they're also the teacher. Because exactly what you just said in terms of even preparing them for a Zoom meeting, parents used to do that like in the morning before they let their kids go off, but then they had a little bit of a break. And now Zoom meetings are like every hour on the hour. They are new Zoom meetings. Sometimes they have to reset up. Classes are changing online. And now it becomes a parent role to make sure that they're kind of like the enforcer. And I think that's putting a lot of pressure on mom. Dr. Shapiro, what do you think about that? Because
I don't know. I mean, if there was somebody to whom the job could be handed over, then I would say that sounds good, but please don't think that the psychologists of the world are going to step in and do this. I think, you know, it's kind of inherent to parenting. I mean, if God forbid, you know, if your child develops a chronic medical illness, then you didn't mean to be a nurse, but I guess you're a nurse. And the same would be true of a therapist or a teacher. The buck stops there. So it can't be taken away. And again, I think it really helps people when it's much, much psychologically more comfortable and more effective to believe that you're a good person in a very hard situation than to believe that you're kind of a fraying, unraveling person in a situation that isn't really all that hard. So I encourage both parents and kids to have respect for the difficulty level of the situation that they're in, because then when they start feeling tense and they start having, you know, scared thoughts, they can construe it as, you know, I'm kind of a soldier in this situation. This is what people are talking about when they talk about a tough situation. There's nothing wrong with me. I need to recognize that reality and sort of gird up my loins and face it, because that's a very different experience from feeling like I'm failing. What's wrong with me? Nobody else is having trouble.
Heather Carroll, as a social worker, what would you say that the families can do together to try to work through some of this stress, added jobs?
It's probably good to sit around and have little family meetings about, like, how is the pandemic affecting you and how is it affecting me? It's nice to kind of, you know, is there anything good that's coming out of it? Are there strengths that we're discovering in ourselves? Are there opportunities for the older children to help the younger children? Are there opportunities maybe to help mom or dad to try to look for, nothing about it is going to be easy, but that doesn't mean that nothing about it can be good. Things can be difficult and good. And we do ourselves a lot of benefit by searching out those opportunities for silver linings or blessings in disguise, because there's no way to take away the difficult part. Of course, we should look for opportunities for treats. We should look for things that can inject some positive emotion into our days and into our evenings. Maybe it's like a special little musical concert with, you know, let's dance our little heads off for 20 minutes in between this class and that class. Exercise is great. Mindfulness is good. I hope everybody knows about apps like headspace.com or calm.com. I'm not sure whether people already know, but if you don't, you can jot those things down. There are apps, there are websites that have little mindfulness exercises that are very age appropriate for kids that are young. We have to intersperse something in between these Zoom classes, because focus and concentration are finite resources and they just get used up sometimes, and then it's just not going to work. So we have to find ways, even if it's our kids, to literally run around the room, put on some wild music and just like dance exuberantly for 3 minutes. These are the kinds of tricks that can inject some positive energy into the days.
Carol, what about, let's talk about family meetings and how much, you know, we allow for sharing of feelings and things like that. What some of the structure of that kind of stuff can look like.
Sure. So, you know, I always say, even as a therapist, I gave a presentation, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago to a group of grad students about the balance of engaging and validating your clients and also helping them meet their goals and engage in some change, right? So you don't want to be overly validating to the point that they now feel victimized, right? And you're right, my life is terrible. You also don't want to push for change and, okay, well, what are you going to do about it if they don't feel understood and validated? So I think that one of the, you know, the best kind of lines and balances that parents can develop when, you know, in a crisis or in an uncomfortable situation or in, you know, in this case, a worldwide pandemic, is that honest validation. Like, yeah, it's rough for me too. I appreciate that you shared that with me. Looks like you're having a hard day. I had one of those yesterday. And then going to the, what ideas do you have? What do you think we can do about it? So one of my favorite authors and trainers, her name is Jamie Merritt. She's very open about her addiction. And she said that her first sponsor said to her when she learned about her life, she said, Jamie, after everything you've been through, it's no wonder that you developed an addiction. Now, what are you going to do about it? So I think that kind of mindset working with children and families is like, yeah, this is really rough. What do you think we should do about it? So on the one hand, there's the, open conversation with the validating and the problem solving. And then on the other hand, this is a little bit of a different kind of a tangent, but it kind of flows with empowering children. Try to give them control over anything that you can that doesn't really make a difference to you. So I tell parents, asking the kids, hey, which pair of pants do you want to wear today? They're going to wear pants. So it doesn't matter what they choose. Or, did you want to leave now or did you want to leave in 5 minutes? Or which cereal do you want for breakfast? Which place at the table do you want to sit? Something that they're going to do anyhow. So it's not like you're putting yourself in a position, well, what if they say no? They're going to sit. They're going to have cereal. But this way they feel like they have a little more control over this life where they really don't have control. Because, a need for control it's a basic human innate need, right? And it's stripped away. We all realize this was, some of us took a little longer and some of us are still taking our time, right? You said no
We're
apology.
in different stages. We're in different stages. And by the way, one of the things that has kept me going through this entire period is the years ago, we had, for Tree of Knowledge, we had a speaker that came and talked about how parents of children with special needs go through the 5 stages of grief multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I'm thinking that during the pandemic, we're in an hourly multiple stages of grief here. And at any moment, we can be in the denial period, we can be in the sad period, we could be, okay, we're in this together. So it's not a one-time experience. And I think that's the same thing for children. It's not like, oh, hey, I'm cool with this pandemic. I'm loving Zoom. No, 10 minutes later, they could be right in that anger mode all over again. So I think that's what we're seeing in that. Naomi, as a parent, since you want to be really addressed as a parent, does this work for you? Have you tried any family meetings? How are you doing with this?
I wanted to just mention what you said about the constant changing in the 10 minutes. You could be rocking it out and for 10 minutes you're on your game and all your kids are on Zoom and everything's, going fine and dandy. And then, as you said, 10 minutes later, everyone's crying, everyone's melting down. And I think the main key for parents and for moms and dads out there, what I want them to hear is, and we know this word to be a very sort of soothing and helpful word, but now more than ever, we need to implement it, is gentle. We need to be gentle on ourselves. We are being tasked with the impossible right now. I use it personally, and I use it for my kids. And when I see them, not being able to cope, I think, I wonder if I was in this situation, if I was in 3rd grade or 1st grade, and I was sitting and I was having Zoom fatigue and trying